We often imagine that the end of an era is announced with a trumpet blast. We think it arrives with a sudden stock market crash, a declaration of war, or a chaotic revolution in the streets. But history teaches us something far more unsettling. The breakdown of a great system is almost always quiet. It is not an explosion. It is a slow, grinding stagnation. It is the sound of a machine that has become too complex to repair, too expensive to fuel, and too rigid to turn. The breakdown happens when the solutions to our problems become more expensive than the problems themselves. We are living through such a moment right now. The engines of the global economy, the massive systems that have defined our lives for the last 80 years, are entering a phase of structural exhaustion. Before we begin to unpack this, I want to ask you a small favor. History is a conversation, not a monologue. I am curious to know where you are listening from. Please take a moment to write your city or your country in the comments below. It helps me understand the classroom we are building here together. Today, I want to talk about why the world's largest economies, from the United States to China to Europe, are all hitting the same wall at the same time. This is not about one political party or one bad policy. It is about physics. It is about the life cycle of complex systems. To understand where we are, we have to move beyond the daily news cycle. We need a framework. I want you to imagine a forest. When a forest is young, it is chaotic but competitive. Saplings fight for sunlight. There is rapid growth. It is dynamic. But as the forest matures, the canopy closes. The massive ancient trees dominate everything. They suck up all the water. They block out all the sun. The forest looks majestic and stable from the outside, but on the forest floor, nothing new can grow. The system has become so efficient at maintaining the status quo that it has lost the ability to adapt. This is the success trap. It is a concept that historians and sociologists have observed for thousands of years. The very things that make a civilization great eventually become the heavy weights that drag it down. Let's apply this to our economies. Think about the post-World War II era. We built massive institutions. We built global supply chains. We built welfare states and financial systems. We did this to solve problems, to prevent poverty, to move goods, to create stability. And it worked. We created the most prosperous era in human history. But there is a law in economics called the law of diminishing returns. In the beginning, investing in a new road creates massive value. It connects cities. It creates trade. But once you have a road to everywhere, building another road doesn't create wealth. It just creates a maintenance bill. In 2024 and 2025, the major economies of the world have reached the point where the cost of maintaining our systems is higher than the growth those systems can generate. We are running faster and faster just to stay in the same place. The most obvious symptom of this breakdown is debt. But I don't want to talk about debt as a boring number on a spreadsheet. I want you to think of debt as time travel. When we borrow money, we are taking resources from the future and using them today. We are pulling demand forward. For the last 20 years, every time the global economy slowed down, central banks and governments intervened. They lowered interest rates. They printed money. They encouraged borrowing. They were terrified of the natural winter of the economic cycle, so they tried to engineer an eternal summer. The result is that today, global debt to GDP ratios are at levels we typically only see after catastrophic wars. But there was no war. We spent that money just to keep the lights on. We spent it to maintain the illusion of growth. In late-stage economies, debt stops being a tool for investment, like borrowing to build a factory, and becomes a tool for sedation. We use debt to mask the fact that our real standard of living is stagnating. We use debt to pay for the pensions of an aging population. We use debt to prop up asset prices, houses, and stocks, so that people feel wealthy even as their purchasing power erodes. This creates a dangerous structural incentive. If the system allows a correction, if we let the forest burn a little bit, the pain would be immense. The asset prices would fall, the banks would shake. So the political incentive is always to print more, to borrow more, to kick the can down the road. But every time we do that, we make the system more fragile. We are trading small, manageable fires for one massive, uncontrollable conflagration in the future. But financial debt is only one layer of the problem. There is a deeper debt that is coming due, and that is demographic debt. You cannot have an economy based on endless growth if you have a shrinking population. It is a mathematical impossibility. Yet look at the data coming out of the major economies in 2024 and 2025. In East Asia, South Korea, Japan, China, birth rates have collapsed to levels that demographers previously thought were impossible. In Europe, the native population is shrinking. Even in the United States and parts of Latin America, fertility is below the replacement rate. Why is this happening? Is it just a cultural shift? Is it just that people prefer careers over families? I would argue that this too is a structural result of the late stage economy. We have built a system that is incredibly efficient at extracting labor from human beings, but incredibly inefficient at reproducing human beings. Think about the cost of housing. In a healthy early stage economy, housing is shelter. It is a utility. In a late-stage financialized economy, housing becomes an investment vehicle. We have policies that encourage house prices to go up because it makes voters feel rich and it secures loans for banks. But when housing becomes an investment asset, it becomes too expensive for young families to afford. We have essentially eaten our own seed corn. We have prioritized the asset values of the old over the family formation of the young. And now the bill is arriving. We see labor shortages. We see pension systems that are mathematically insolvent because there are not enough young workers to pay for the retirees. This demographic decline acts as a massive deflationary weight. You can print all the money you want, but you cannot print 20-year-old engineers. You cannot print healthcare workers. When the people aren't there, the system loses its dynamism. It becomes rigid. It becomes a nursing home. This brings us to the third pillar of the breakdown, institutional decay. There is a historian named Joseph Tainter who wrote a brilliant book called The Collapse of Complex Societies. His thesis is simple. Societies collapse when their investments in social complexity reach a point of diminishing marginal returns. In the beginning, a government bureaucracy solves problems. It organizes the harvest. It settles disputes. But over time, the bureaucracy becomes a self-preserving organism. It creates rules to justify its own existence. It hires more people to manage the rules. In 2025, think about how hard it is to build anything in the Western world. If you want to build a bridge, a power plant, or even a simple apartment building, you have to navigate years of permitting, environmental reviews, lawsuits, and community consultations. Now, individually, each of these rules might make sense. We want to protect the environment, we want to hear the community, but collectively, they create a sediment, a layer of sludge that freezes the society. I call this the vitocracy. It is a system where everyone has the power to say no, but no one has the power to say yes. When a society becomes a vitocracy, it loses the ability to adapt to new challenges. If we need to build a new energy grid to handle AI or electric vehicles, we can't do it fast enough. If we need to rearm our military because the world is becoming dangerous, we find that our industrial base is atrophied and wrapped in red tape. This creates a profound sense of frustration in the population. You can feel it, can't you? The sense that nothing works anymore. The trains are late. The hospitals are full. The potholes don't get fixed. The police don't show up. This leads to the erosion of trust. Trust is the invisible currency of any economy. When trust is high, you can do business with a handshake. Costs are low. Speed is high. When trust collapses, you need a contract for everything. You need a lawyer for everything. You need cameras everywhere. Transaction costs skyrocket. In the late-stage economies of the West, and increasingly in the East, trust in institutions has evaporated. People do not trust the media. They do not trust the banks. They do not trust the experts. And critically, they do not trust each other. When trust is gone, a society cannot coordinate. It splits into tribes. Politics stops being about solving shared problems and starts being about crushing the other team. It becomes a zero-sum game. If you win, I lose. This internal fracturing is exactly what happened to the Roman Republic before it became an empire. It is what happened to the French monarchy before the Revolution. The elite class became disconnected from the reality of the common people. They fought amongst themselves for control of the shrinking pie, ignoring the structural rot beneath their feet. We see this today in the phenomenon of elite overproduction. We are producing far more credentialed, ambitious people than there are positions of power for them to fill. We have millions of university graduates with high expectations but low prospects of real economic power. This creates a class of angry, counter-elite agitators who want to burn the system down because they feel the system has broken its promise to them. So let's put these pieces together. We have a debt burden that steals from the future. We have a demographic collapse that removes the engine of growth. We have a bureaucratic sclerosis that prevents adaptation. And we have a loss of trust that makes political solutions impossible. This is why I say we are entering the breakdown phase. It is not because of a singular event. It is because the structural incentives are all aligned towards stagnation and conflict. Now, I want to address the geopolitical dimension, but not in the way you usually hear it. We often hear about the Thucydides trap, the inevitable conflict between a rising power and a falling power. People look at the US and China and say war is inevitable, but I want to propose a different framework. What if both powers are falling? What if we are looking at two geriatrics wrestling in a hospital room? The United States is struggling with social cohesion and debt. China is struggling with the fastest demographic collapse in history and a bursting real estate bubble. Europe is struggling with a loss of industrial competitiveness and an energy crisis. The breakdown phase of the global economy means the end of the global consensus. For 30 years, we lived in a world of hyper-globalization. Efficiency was the only god. If it was 2 cents cheaper to make a vital medicine in a factory 5,000 miles away, we did it. We assumed the oceans would always be safe and trade would always be free. That era is over. In 2025, we are moving from an era of efficiency to an era of resilience. Nations are realizing that when the breakdown comes, you cannot eat GDP. You cannot defend yourself with a stock portfolio. You need real things, you need food, you need energy, you need steel, you need microchips. We are seeing a massive re-onshoring. Nations are trying to pull their critical supply chains back home. They are putting up walls. Tariffs, sanctions, export controls, these are not temporary anomalies. They are the new normal. This is inflationary. It is expensive to build a factory in Ohio or Bavaria instead of Shenzhen. But nations are willing to pay that price because they prioritize security over efficiency. This transition is painful. It means the goods you buy at the store will cost more. It means interest rates will likely stay higher than we are used to. It means the easy money era is gone. But here's the reflective part. Here's where we need to stop panicking and start thinking. Is this breakdown entirely bad? In nature, a forest fire is destructive, yes, but it is also necessary. It clears out the dead wood. It returns nutrients to the soil. It opens up the canopy so that new light can reach the floor. The breakdown of the late-stage financialized economy is terrifying for those who benefit from the status quo. It is terrifying for the asset holders, the bureaucrats, and the managers of the old system. But for the long-term health of civilization, this reset is inevitable and perhaps necessary. We cannot continue to financialize the world forever. We cannot continue to treat housing as a casino chip forever. We cannot continue to ignore the biological reality of demographics forever. The breakdown forces us to return to reality. It forces us to ask, what is real wealth? Is wealth a number on a screen? Or is wealth a cohesive community? Is it a fertile soil? Is it a population that is healthy and skilled? Is it a manufacturing base that can actually make things? As the artificial complexity of the financial system strips away, we are going to see a return to the physical. The nations and the individuals who will thrive in the next 20 years are not the ones who are best at manipulating money. They are the ones who are best at manipulating reality. The farmers, the engineers, the builders, the caretakers, the people who can solve real problems in the real world. We are moving from a fake economy driven by marketing, speculation, and debt to a hard economy driven by resources, energy, and utility. This transition will be turbulent. The institutions we have trusted for decades will likely falter. We may see currencies reset, we may see political maps redrawn, but history shows us that humanity is incredibly adaptive. When the Roman Empire in the West fell, it didn't mean the end of the world. It meant the end of a specific way of organizing the world. It was painful, yes, but life continued. New systems emerged, systems that were more local, more resilient, and better suiting the new reality. So, what should you do with this information? First, do not give in to fear. Fear is a paralysis. Understanding is power. If you know that the debt cycle is turning, you won't be surprised when inflation spikes. If you know that institutions are decaying, you won't be shocked when they fail to save you. Second, look at your own life. Are you fragile or are you resilient? Are you dependent on a complex global system for your survival, or do you have local networks? Do you have skills that are valuable in a hard economy? Third, and perhaps most importantly, recognize that this is a historical pattern. You are not the victim of a unique conspiracy. You are a passenger on a cycle that has spun for thousands of years. The breakdown phase is also a breakthrough phase. It is the moment when the old rigid structures finally crack. allowing something new to emerge. It is a time of danger, yes, but also a time of immense opportunity for those who are willing to build something real amidst the decay of the artificial. The world's largest economies are breaking down because they have done their job. They built the industrial world. Now they are exhausted. They are struggling to find a new purpose, a new structure. We are the ones who will have to build that new structure. It will not be built in the central banks or the parliaments. It will be built in our neighborhoods, in our local businesses, and in the way we choose to educate our children. The giant trees are dying. The canopy is opening up. The sunlight is hitting the forest floor for the first time in 80 years. What will you plant? Thank you for your time and your attention. It is a heavy topic, I know, but clarity is always better than comforting illusions. I am deeply interested to hear your thoughts on this. Do you see these signs of breakdown in your own city? Do you feel the shift from the easy economy to the hard economy? Let's continue this discussion in the comments. And if you found this analysis helpful, if it gave you language to describe what you have been feeling, then I have done my job. Until next time.